Welcome to Early, the podcast about business in Web3 from Bankless Consulting. I'm your host, DSide, and on each episode of Early, I'm joined by thought leaders, innovators, and other denizens of Web3 who are building the internet of the future. Money is programmable, assets are digital, and exchanges are decentralized here. So join me on this journey into the past, the present, and the future of Web3. And remember, if you're here, you're early. Welcome to Early, the podcast about the business of Web3 from Bankless Consulting. I'm your host, DSide. And with me today, my very special guest. I can't tell you how excited I am for this. We booked this about a week ago, and I've been thinking about it every day since. So my special guests are Nick and Marcus from RumbleKong League. RumbleKong is a 3 versus 3 player NFT basketball game. And I'll let these guys tell you more about it. Why don't you each give a quick introduction about yourselves? Nick, why don't you go first?
Awesome. Yeah, first of all, thanks for having us. You've been a long-time supporter of RKL, so we're pumped to jam with you today. My name's Nick, one of the co-founders of RKL. My kind of, previous experience is really in traditional Web2 game development, specifically back when Xbox indie games were all the craze, sort of pre-game engine days. We built 2 titles in particular, one of which was the first real port of Minecraft to Xbox called Total Miner. We grew that to be the best selling of all time on Xbox indie games. From there, went on to do another title, which was like a janky early Fortnite with voxels. It was like a builder shooter combo with some UGC elements, which was a number 3. From there, really went deep down the crypto rabbit hole in full time 2014, essentially down the Bitcoin hole. My brother and I were trying to do this kind of sports betting concept at the time, so it's come full circle with RKL. Nonetheless, you learned about NFTs then in 2017. That was kind of my worlds colliding. Gaming assets just made sense to me. So dove in full-time gaming, really. Web3 gaming, whatever you want to call it. And we just call it traditional gaming today, essentially. But nonetheless, joined the sandbox game pretty much at the blockchain inception. Was there about 2.5 years, leading a bunch of different things. Where ultimately Marcus and I met. And I'll let him tell his side, and then we can get a little more into RKL.
Thank you very much. So yes, my name is Marcus. I'm originally from Germany. I was born in Berlin, Germany, and working in the gaming industry since 2008. So quite some time already. I was lucky enough to have my first gig in the gaming industry at Activision Blizzard, which back then was my dream job. I was playing WoW way too much when I was back at home, and I thought myself why not make this a job? And I ended up at Blizzard at a very fortunate time when WoW was on the on the rise. I stayed there for 4 years, was working in publishing, and essentially discovered my love for building brands, building products, doing marketing. And I joined a free-to-play publisher and developer called Wargaming in 2012. I relocated to France and essentially was quite early to free-to-play. Back when it was a business model that nobody really liked, because people were like, why would I play something for free if I can have a full game experience for 60, $70 at the time? And fast forward now, free-to-play is the business model of all the successful titles: Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft, Counter-Strike. They all have one type of free-to-play component to it. And I was very lucky to work there for 6 or 7 years, actually. I ended up leading the European publishing. I left the company in 2017, roughly, and joined a French startup called Shadow. They were doing cloud gaming. Was something that I was quite curious about at the time. It didn't end up where everyone was projecting it back at the time, when people talked about Stadia and PlayStation Now, and there is still something around, but it's a little bit like VR. It's somewhere there, it's happening, but it doesn't really explode as everyone was expecting. Anyway, I joined them, was leading the gaming partnerships, a lot of the business side, and launching the German-speaking market. And around the same time, I found out about NFTs, play to earn, blockchain. So much later than Nick. And I had this deja vu moment of hey, I've seen this somewhere with free to play before. And I found out about blockchain, like on chain, like digital assets, ownership. And I was like, I have to get in this now. And I jumped down this rabbit hole. I met the co-founders of the Sandbox. I joined them as their CMO in late 2020. And this is when Nick and myself crossed path. And then NFT summer happened, and one thing led to another. And now we're building a 3v3 basketball game.
Yeah, you say that very nonchalantly. I mean, you guys have been building this for 3 years now or more, right? How did the idea initially come together?
In the early days, like Nick and myself, we were already talking about doing something together. And then a lot of things happened like in parallel. Like we had Bored Apes minting, Top Shot was onboarding a lot of basketball fans. Nick and myself being like as you see on our backgrounds, like very much gamer and sports interested. We saw like the direction going there. Axie was going viral in the Philippines, so we had all those ingredients somewhere there, and we sat together and was like, hey, there must be there is something there. Like, why not like combining all of this, like giving someone the opportunity to create, like to bring his digital identity into an engaging game with blockchain components and all around basketball and sports, like just in like a fast-paced, entertaining, and a great sport to watch and to play. And all of this led together and like created the Rumble Kong League, where we are. What then led to minting in 2021, like end of July. And since then, a lot of things happened.
Yeah, a lot of things definitely have happened. I'll give my side of the story. And, full disclosure, of course, I own multiple Kongs, and not shilling my bags here, but just telling a story. I think it was probably August of 2021, about a month after minting, I discovered NFTs, and I was poking around, and I was engaged by the art. I thought it was really cool, looked into it a little bit more. And then, but I also, I've never been an art collector, and I didn't quite get NFTs. But then I saw that there was a game behind it, and I saw that there was value besides the art in terms of the boosts. And I was like, oh, there's a real game here. Like there's more built into this. These guys have put some thought into it. Did some quick research, and I was all in. I literally aped in. So from that point on, I mean, things got pretty crazy in the RKL community, in a positive way mostly. I think, and the amazing thing is that the community really just took over, right? I mean, did you guys plan that? Did you plant seeds? Like, how did that all happen?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think we could have planned it if we wanted to, right? Like, especially in that time in the NFT space, we were one of the first or one of the earlier projects that actually had a game component behind them, right? Like since then, we've seen Web3 gaming at least really take off from conceptual stage, and now products are starting to get there and starting to go live. But nonetheless, like it was really PFPs. Like there was PFP craze. People weren't really attaching much behind them. To us, NFTs were always more like digital ownership can enable a lot of other things outside of, hey, here's a monkey JPEG, right? And so no, like we couldn't have planned it, and we didn't even sell out instantly, right? Like our mint, I think, was over 3-4 days, something like that. Like it took a bit.
That's
people
amazing.
had to come in, really understand the concept, see what was behind it, the team behind it. We really like leaned into the reputations we had built in the space, people we had known in the space. I think what built our community so strong, ultimately, like looking back, is the fact that back then, like people were relying on influencer pump and dumps, and hey, this person's buying this, we all need to buy. And we were quite literally the polar opposite of that. Like we were fully organic. No one cared, right? Influencers didn't care, none of that. And we didn't want that. We wanted like valuable people. We still see that today. Like people minted knowing that we're building this gaming ecosystem. It's going to take time. We're building it with quality. We're not just rushing some, half-baked product out there. And we see that today by the holder numbers. Like, I forget what the latest is, but a large majority have been holding since mint because they bought into this experience that we're delivering. And so it's definitely like we couldn't have planned it better, I guess is my point.
Yeah, totally. And, the game has not been released yet, but it still is an experience. There's art contests and contributions. I mean, there are guys who they produce their own animations. It's great. Like you don't see that in very many NFT communities or any communities at all where people are really just they're producing their own content just for the sake of the art and the content and the engagement.
100%. It's a UGC dream, right?
Yeah, that's really cool. Mark?
The whole UGC and asset creation and everything around was something for us was very important early on, is that someone in the community wants to create something, and the NFT space initially was very much artist driven. Like there
Right.
was a lot of the drive towards NFT in 2021 was empowerment of artists and giving them an outlet and new ways to reach an audience and portray and sell their art digitally. So there is a big overlap of very creative people and people that are interested from a technological standpoint. And for us, it was important that we empower this, and that goes with IP rights. If you hold the Kong, if you have the NFT, so you can create sub brands or you can do something around. Like we see people that have their Kongs printed on their hoodies, very much. Or as you mentioned as well, there's animations. There's musicians that are doing like snippets and hip hop tracks about like the Rumble Kong League, and digitally as well. There were a couple of things where we played around with brands. Like we had a campaign with Under Armour some time back when Steph Curry broke his 3-pointer record. I think it was a little over 1 year ago. But those kind of things, for us, it was important that it is creatively very open, but at the same time, we wanted to that everything is around basketball. So if you like basketball, there should be something for you to do in the RKL, being it creating, being it playing, or being it just hanging around and talking about the playoffs.
Sure. And so, Nick, you mentioned basketball or sports ecosystem, and you and I, we met about 2 years ago at NFT NYC, and we talked about this over beers, and you sort of blew my mind when you started talking about how it's not just a PFP, it's not just a game, it is an ecosystem. What's the vision for that?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing I always preface this with is there's a lot of layers to RKL, right? Basketball is one of the most fascinating sports. Like if you just look at sports for a second in general, because of all the subcultures around it. Like when you think about basketball, you think about like athlete fandom, but not on the level as you might in another sport. Like you might just like the drip that like Steph Curry wears out,
Sure.
Out of the tunnel or whatever. Like there's so many little facets. You could just be into like graffiti, hip hop culture and the music element, but not really care about like who's going to win the playoffs, right? You might be like diehard to a team. You might be like just into the sneaker head, like collective culture around it, right? Like a lot of people just go to basketball games to like flex their fashion even, right? Like they might not even really care about basketball. So there's all these little cultures around that center around the sport. And that's really important to us to like, how do we, when we took a look, like how do we activate that? How do we tap into these different like niches within? How do we kind of make a place for everyone? And so that's kind of how we see it today, right? Like we have the game. You could just be a player interested in basketball. You play eventually, a mobile experience. You like games. You can come in and jam and have fun. You could be super competitive and want to play, in the higher leagues. Think of it as like the NBA of the RKL, right? Through the club system. You could just be a fan of teams and get involved in the club system by supporting them. You could be a creator that just wants to make art and get it in game. You could be a brand that wants to run a full-fledged campaign and sponsor a team, right? Like there's so many different areas for different people. And that's, our broader vision is tapping into all of it. Of course, like it all starts with a really solid game that's fun and engaging to play. And the outlets around it are really endless. So there's a lot to do. And that's why, we continue to rely more on the community and start to push into them more because we have all these different talents within.
Yeah. And a lot of things have happened, just like we said before, organically within the community. How hard are you pushing externally, like with partnerships and sponsorships and things like that?
Yeah, definitely. So
and is that like, what's the business plan around that?
Yeah. So first of all, we view brands and athletes is like fundamental to building a compelling game and also bringing Web3 more mainstream. Like the Web3 market, whether people say it or not, there's not enough within gaming. There's not even enough wallets to have one successful game, right? Like there's traders, flippers, and speculators. Like that's the reality of the space today. And we need to bring in gamers and teach them what ownership rights actually can enable and how it can help them. They don't care currently, right? And they need to kind of be shown that without, with extracting away the whole crypto element of it. So what I mean by that is this is where brands get really interesting for us. So, CA Sports sits on our advisory board. We've been engaged with them for quite some time. We actually recently, we signed them for 2 years as well. They've been like pivotal in helping us connect with brands, connect with athletes. How does that look when they enter the RKL? How can it look as we get closer to game? We've signed some pretty notable deals with quite a few brands. The one that we've teased around that people know is obviously Gatorade. And the end goal is to bring those to benefit the community in interesting ways that you'll see over the coming months as we lead towards the game, that we haven't talked too much about yet, but nonetheless, I'm sure you can stir up some ideas of how those might look with game activations.
Sure. When you talk about athletes and players, are you referring to gamers or the actual players?
Both. So athletes wise, I'm referring to like NBA athletes, right? Like we've been privileged where organically a lot of them just resonated with RKL. They vibed with the community. They came in and bought, and some of them even turned into like investors in the company when we did our seed round, like Paul George, Steph Curry, these kind of guys. But the roster that just was like, hey, this is cool, right? Really, really dove in. I think it's important to know, like people forget, we've talked to a lot of these athletes, they forget that when your average NBA player, like when they're not playing or training, they're gaming, right? Like for sure. Some of them stream on Twitch, but they're playing games. Mm-hmm. They're playing 2K, they're playing Fortnite, they're playing COD. Like that's what they do outside of playing basketball is they play games.
Yeah. Any aspirations for partnering with a league or other professional organizations?
Absolutely. And we've had those discussions. There's still further out for us. Like a lot of people forget about not necessarily the politics, but the hurdles for a lot of these large organizations of like, what does monetization look like? What does, regulatory concerns look like and these sort of things. But that's where we really view clubs getting interesting. Clubs kind of become these communities and brands within a brand, and they become like almost like an esports team model on steroids. And that's where we see them resonate really well.
Cool. So not everybody listening knows what clubs are within the RKL ecosystem. Explain how they work, and also talk about the auction and how that went. Good, bad, and ugly.
I'll give it to you to dive in there.
It's very from an ecosystem standpoint, there's multiple layers to the RKL. Initially, when we launched the project, we had only Kongs, which are the players of the highest league. Like the RKL, like the Rumble Kong League, is the equivalent of a virtual NBA. In our universe, in the lore that we're building, it's happening in this physical, virtual city called Athos, which is really this hub for sports and teams and competition to take place. And we wanted to create a universe where all of this can happen. Like think of it as like really the sports city, the city of sports and competition. And we were thinking how, like if such a city would exist, like how would this look like? And the Kongs are a first layer here. Since then, we introduced the rookies, which is a little bit like the younger Kongs. Like there's gonna be more to it, how they're gonna get their boost and how they're gonna get rating and how they're gonna perform on the court. We can talk about this a little bit later. But in the future, we see Athlos as this hybrid of like Zootopia meets NBA Jam meets Space Jam type of vibe that we're trying to catapult into Web3. And we see this resonating a lot of in the community as well. And we thought the best way to really empower like creative people in the community and young brands is by offering an opportunity to essentially get a franchise spot in the RKL. And this is where clubs come into play. So clubs ultimately will be the only way to play in the Rumble Kong League, which is going to be the competitive league. So there's going to be game days, there's going to be match days, there's going to be the games when the days when the clubs are meeting each other, and there's going to be the playoffs, there's going to be all of this. But for us, it's really important to foster like this healthy competition across a community, because a big part of like sports and entertainment of any sport is the community, is this tribalism behind, and it's supporting your team. Like I'm from Germany, and like I still support the German teams because it's not like my father always said, it's not you who picks your team, but it's your city, like it's where you're born that picks your team that you support. And I think a lot of people can resonate with this. And at the same time, we wanted to create something where everyone can create their own brand, because Web3 is around like communities building things from scratch and empowering them. And we had an auction for this 1 year ago. I think like it was 1 year and 1 week even. Like we're almost at the anniversary. And one thing that we are like very proud of, and that for us is very important, is from a technical standpoint, a lot of our code, like of the front end, back end, all of this is built in-house. So we have a very skilled and talented team that is working day in, day out on our own tech and proprietary tech that is being developed. So Club Auction was one of them, which has been a reverse Dutch auction where everyone could bid, but at the end of the day, they were the top 50 bids that were accepted to this, which resulted into an average price of 50 clubs that sold at roughly 12 ETH at the time, which was 1 year ago. ETH was a different price than it was today. So for us, it really helped to accelerate some of the development elements to really like now promote the clubs and help them to build the content around their brands, which is something when we talk about, as you mentioned as well, like the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like the ugly side is, I think, internally for us, a lot of the focus lies on the game, like building a fun game. Like Nick and myself, we have a gaming background in the team. We have a lot of branding, advertising, sports backgrounds, but we know that a lot of it like rises and falls on a fun gameplay. So over the last month, a big focus for us has been on like focus testing, giving the client in front of users, getting feedback, iterating, and doing a lot of the like the ugly back and forth, and just doing things, improving it. For clubs, we want to support them more, like due to the market conditions and some internal factors. We had to deprioritize some of the things and the plans that we had for clubs, which is something, looking back at it, we probably would have done differently. However, we still want to support, and we still have regular calls with the clubs, and we're helping them to build their own ecosystem. And we're like, one thing that we're going to talk about soon and releasing to them soon is like taking them by the hand and designing the in-game jerseys, because we want to have a game, first of all, that millions of players play. And if I put the game in front of someone that doesn't know about the RKL, that doesn't know about any of the clubs, he just wants to have a fun game. Like this is our top priority. But then there's going to be different layers of engagement. And the clubs for us is something, hey, you play a game. This is basketball. You like it. Like you want to get more engaged. Like here are some, maybe you are from Seattle. So there's a club that's called the Seattle Super Kongs. Sure. Like why not check this out and get involved with this community, and then do local meetups, like have a creative outlet. We really get closer and have a bonding that goes beyond just playing a casual mobile game. And we really see that clubs can like excel in that area. And today there are 50, there's going to be more. And we also like want to create really this ecosystem where wherever you play, you should be interested in learning more about the clubs. They will unlock certain things in game. They will give you certain benefits, but it's still a choice, because you should pick the club that you want to support, or pick a club that chooses you.
A bunch of things. So first of all, clubs, kudos to you guys, and just credit to the types of developers you are and types of people you are, that you had an opportunity to extract more funds in the club auction. I'll just say that. And the way you ran the Dutch auction, and I don't know if Dutch auctions are always done this way, but the final price was the lowest of the 50 bids. Do I have that right? So the top 50 bids, correct, and everybody paid the 50th highest bid. So, like I said, kudos correct to you guys. Correct. You could have easily extracted way more funds from the whole system if you handled it differently. So, and that's just a tribute to your commitment to the community and doing the right thing. So I think that's the good. I mean, like very good. And I think the community also appreciates that. So, and thank you guys for running it that way. I personally, like I said, I have a bunch of Kongs. 1 or 2 of my Kongs are in the Coastal Kong Club, CKC. And I I can attest to what you're saying. I mean, it's just cool. It's camaraderie. It's fun. I mean, I joined those guys. We threw a couple of Kongs in their club because they were cool. We hung out at a Kong, at a NFT NYC get together. We had a couple of beers, had a good time. They were solid guys, and we chatted for a few weeks. And I joined, put a couple of Kongs with them. Since then, I played in the fantasy football league, and there's ongoing shit talking in the Discord, and it's just fun. It's just like community. It's a sub community within the RKL community, and that's a tribute to you guys. So, and to them also, to the clubs that are growing.
Just to add to this, because it's something very interesting that you mentioned as well when it comes to sub communities, and it goes back to what Nick mentioned. Like you might love basketball, but you might also be a very creative person, or you might love the vibe of Coast to Coast, which is very much like this palm tree kind of vibe. But then there's other clubs that are more serious or more rough, or like less shit talking, maybe more like waiting to show the performance on the court. But this is really this is like for us it's surreal, and it's a dream come true that you have like clubs that are as actively building their own ecosystem and going out there and getting together and building like those groups of like really friendships. Like there's a lot of people that would have never met if they wouldn't have had minted a Kong or bought like afterwards into the project. And for us, it's a dream come true. And thank you as well for the kind words of the Dutch auction. But for us, I think it's the mantra internally is, for us, it's not about like doing a pump and dump and doing a project and getting out there. Like if we would be thinking like this, we wouldn't be here, and we would have been gone like for 1.5 years and done something different. But one of the key reasons why we started this venture is because we strongly believe in blockchain and the technology, but we see that there is from a gaming perspective, there is the need for a fun game that you play because you have a great time, and you don't play it because you can earn some tokens. There's going to be like an upside, like the floor price is going to go up, but we really want to have something that is first and foremost fun, which right now, like honestly doesn't exist. But it's going to happen. There's going to be one game that is going to like change the paradigm, that is going to explain to the general gamer what are digital assets, why would I care, and what is the upside for me. And then it's gonna change the gaming industry. Like we are very, very, very much convinced by it. So why not the RKL? Like why not us? Why not a game that we've been building for the last 2 years? So for us, like this is the reason why we're doing this. It's really passion, and we're driven by passion, and we want to just do cool shit, and that's why we're here.
Yeah, I'm sure you've had those conversations many conversations like that over the past couple of years, and now you're at the stage where the game is developing. There's videos, there's demos, and you're sort of building in public, right? I mean, you're exposing everything new that is developed. You're sharing it with the community. How has that worked for you? Has that been a good experience?
Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. Go ahead.
I can jump first into it because my background is like traditional like AAA gaming. So I worked at Activision, Blizzard, Wargaming, and there like a product life cycle is very long. And the moment you talk or you show a game is when internally it's already been done. Like it has playable demos, like there have been a lot of milestone meetings, like green light meetings, all of this has been passed. And then it's when marketing gets involved and they show the game and it looks great and everyone wants to play it and it's really good. But we've done this different. Essentially what we've done is we've done a Kickstarter campaign on steroids. And we said like, hey, this is what we want to do. Here's this is who we are. This is why we can do this. And we were very lucky and very fortunate enough to have found a lot of people that believed in us. And that's what's going on right now. But there's I wouldn't call it a downside. It's just a challenge, and it's new for us as well to build in public and having this level of transparency, because all of a sudden you have a community of thousands of people that all have financial investment into your company, that are interested in seeing this going somewhere, and they'd like to be up to date and they want to know what's going on. So we have a very transparent communication style. A lot of the work in progress is being put out there. Recently, we went like a step further and put a lot of our roadmap items onto a public Notion board that anyone at any time can go and have a look at what the status is and what's happening over the next few weeks and months. But I would say that this is the biggest change for me personally, is to be like to be that transparent when it comes to building. But I think we found our right rhythm. I wouldn't call ourselves a Web3 company because we still have a centralized development team. A lot of the strategic decisions are being done internally, but we involve our community on a lot of decisions. So I would say we are Web 2.5, but we'd like to get to the 3 at some point.
You would, like in the form of a DAO? Decentralized ownership. I mean,
maybe not in.
But you've already decentralized ownership a little bit with clubs, right?
Yeah, I think it's less about like what people think of when they think of a DAO, because there's obviously a lot of ways they can work and plenty of ways they can't, especially around games. Like, I think one of the things learned in traditional game development too is people are very vocal, but it's usually a small few that are loud, and oftentimes aren't thinking about like downstream game design decisions and how that can affect, in our case, what's going to be a live living economy, right? Like if you give all the power to speculators, they want to extract a ton of value from the economy, right? And that doesn't work to build a sustainable 10, 20 plus year game company. So I think it's more about just involving them in direction, certain choices, certain elements. Maybe it's around like even in the future, different kind of tournaments, how they might want things to look, trying out mechanics with them. And more than anything, like we and what we've shifted towards is explaining decisions, right? More like, hey, here's why that doesn't work in our heads, and let us know if you think otherwise and why, and let's have a discussion about it, right? Like the important thing to keep in mind is everyone's incentives are aligned. We want RKL to succeed. The community wants RKL to succeed. The community wants millions of players. So do we. And I think a lot of times, especially in these down markets, people forget that, right? It's a lot of times you'll see communities and go. It might seem like they're clashing with the team, but in reality, they're just trying to grow together because like your incentives are very aligned. Everyone wants the same thing.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. I will say you guys are very good at quote crisis management. I mean, not that I've seen anything like terrible happen, but anytime there seems to be any bumps in the road, you just handle it very coolly and calmly. What has been the biggest challenge, or what has been the biggest bump, or the biggest mistake you've made so far?
I think
I'm curious if you guys have the same answer.
Okay.
I can kick it off. From my perspective, I mean, first of all, it's tough, right? Like anyone who's running a Web3 company with a community, with a live project, is lying if they say it's easy. It's very difficult. It's uncharted territory. There's no examples to follow. You're making a lot of decisions to innovate and things that haven't been done before ever, right? From my perspective, like we had recently, right, where a lot of people have just been antsy in the community because game development takes a long time. I think to Marcus's point, people don't understand how long it can take, and that the process is there's not necessarily an end goal in game development, right? Sure. It's this is working, let's experiment with it more. Let's push it into more eyes, more play testing. Let's get some feedback and let's iterate. And that process happens. Our product director, Grant, he comes from King and worked on a lot on the Bubble Saga series and has done really big mobile games. He calls it finding the fun, right? Which a lot of people in game development do, which is, that could take a year, that could take 3. Ideally, it doesn't, but nonetheless, I think that's a big learning experience for people in the community and something that maybe we haven't communicated to the full extent. One of the things I would say has been tough that we haven't said a lot is like there's a lot happening behind the scenes just around the brand outside of game development. We share a lot on of like, hey, what is RKL as a Web3 brand? These brand partnerships we're doing with the likes of the athletes, the Gatorades, all of that. And they're painful. They're slow. Like Web3 is an F1 car. These conversations, like, with Gatorade, we've been talking to them for well over a year, and they have, 7 different legal teams in there, a couple $100 billion company, PepsiCo, right? So they don't make decisions like we can when we're partnering with other games like we have with like Galaxy Fight Club. We can make that in 2 days. So that has been definitely, it's very painful, but very worthwhile in the end, in our opinion. And that's something that I don't think we've done well enough, is explain what's happening there. Because to the outside, I could see why people would say, hey, they're not doing anything on the brand front. It's like, no, we just are under massive NDAs, and there's a lot of discussion there, right?
Can't talk about everything.
Right.
As much as you'd like to.
It's a balance, and that's why we
took
a lot of the communication strategy and transparency even further over the last couple weeks.
Yep. And you guys have definitely, I mean, from my perspective, communicated progressively more maturely, I guess, and, I think you've, like I said, you've handled things very well since the beginning, but it's the challenges will get more challenging. Do you have something else to add to that, Marcus?
No, what Nick mentioned actually is a very good summary, and my answer is very similar to what Nick mentioned. I think one of the key challenges is really around finding the balance between someone that got into the project because they believe in the technological side, they want to have a fun game that is changing the way how games are being played, and you have this other cohort that is really much around like floor price go up, and I want to see like a return on investment, and like I don't care about game, like I'm not a gamer myself. And it's it's a great thing about Web3 and NFTs that you have this component, that there is a direct side. Like there are a lot of games like Counter-Strike, they have a market for their games, for their weapons, which is getting locked down by Valve every now and then. But why not putting this on chain? And this is really the interest for us, and where we see a lot of the potential. So the challenge is to strike the balance and finding something that can be interesting for everyone, but at the same time, don't get too distracted from getting to this product market fit, which for us is really, we want to have a fun game, and Nick mentioned about this. But I think in terms of challenges, like this is really the key one, and everything around like those little like mini crises or managing the community, like it just shows that people care, and that everyone is the same level invested as we are, and we see that as a compliment. Sometimes it's hard to read those messages for us as well, because we're working on it like day in, day out, and then you get bombarded on socials and say like, hey, you don't do anything. So it's of course it's difficult to get through that, but we know where those feedbacks come from, and end of the day, like we all have the same goal.
You guys are definitely forging new territory. Anyone who's working in gaming in Web3 for sure. And I think there's different avenues that are being explored. Is there any project that you particularly have your eyes on that you're emulating in any way, or partnering with, or have just sort of ongoing conversation? Well, check them out from afar, or have conversations with them to be like, yeah, this worked for us. How's that working for you? Sort of thing.
I think there's a lot of them. We also look on, like to Marcus's point, we look on a lot of what's happened in traditional gaming, like with CSGO, like with platforms turning more, or like with games turning more into a platform like Fortnite Creative. Like I think what's happening there is the future of gaming, and we're going to see more of it from every company. Like Roblox really charted that path to the mainstream, and it's going to continue. So we look on a lot of that, and then we look on a lot of like Web3 IP. Like personally, I've been looking a lot just on how Luca and the team at Pudgy Penguins have opened their community up to continue building things out. I think we could do a lot more there as well. And I envy their transparency. I wish we were all in an office in person and not all over the world to create cool content as well. But nonetheless, like I think there's a lot we can take from that and other IPs as well. Yuga obviously continues to set bars that they might be in an interesting place now, but to me, they're a game company at the end of the day, and anyone saying otherwise isn't looking at the full picture. So we take a little bit from everyone. Like we're active in the space just as participants as well, and so we because we like to see what's out there, what's working, what isn't. That's part of the reason. Like we put our tokenomics vision out quite a while ago now, but we always say like no one has cracked that code. Anyone who thinks they've cracked a live game economy with full ownership rights and completely open hasn't. And there's a lot of experiments happening around there. And as some products go to market, like we're watching all of them.
What do you see as the big challenges in tokenomics of an ecosystem like RKL?
Well, first of all, is like there's a very fine point to launching a game economy prematurely, right? When you don't have like you need mass player influx, or at least you need the growth trajectory for it to keep the economy running, to keep it growing and sustaining. In the same way you do for a country, right? You need those participants. You need meaningful things to do in the game, to spend in the game, and that comes with a great product, right? Like a lot of people always use like who don't know too much about game economies or might just look at it on the surface as a gamer, use like the Fortnite skin model. And the reality is like there's a reason people want to buy skins in Fortnite, right?
Yeah.
The game is incredible and it's so much
Sure.
fun and they can do things with it. So it's that balance of, you know, a lot of what we've seen in NFTs and Web3 is, you know, too prematurely, too late, because you can also use it as a customer acquisition tool. So sort of balancing those is incredibly difficult and something that like you know, we're actively thinking about day in and day out as we lead towards the product actually launching.
Yeah. Do you see, I mean, do you have a vision of a future world where the token is actually, well, how would it be utilized in the system, in the ecosystem?
Yeah, really, it's utilized for everything from in-game purchases, like traditional, what you might see in your Fortnites, all the way down
Yeah.
to like tournament payouts. I think there's a future where it could even be used
Sure.
around betting and these, like the beauty of sports is you can have those extended effects. Like there's many games
Sure.
where tournaments, betting, all that doesn't play in. Also around like just league payouts, these sorts of things. So anything touching the game is used in-game consumables, wearables,
Yeah.
new player characters in the future, those sorts of things that are all to some degree enhance gameplay, but it's also that balance of pay to win, right? Which
All right.
is
Well,
very
you're getting me excited, Nick. When token,
right.
it'll come when it comes. So one thing you guys have done is you built out stadiums. I mean, that is, and I'm sure that was a massive project unto itself. What sort of, are there like special features about the stadiums and the arenas that are interactive within the game? Is that part of it?
There are certain elements in a stadium that are customizable, which is something where it goes back to the club conversation, is because you wanna build an arena where you enter your
Right.
club or like the team that you support, and it should feel like this. And even if you play against, like, let's go back to the coastal cons. Like if you play against them and I'm the away team, like I want to feel like I'm entering their arena, and it's like it's in the like in those blue colors, and you have this vibe that is really portrayed in it. So we have two core arenas right now. One of them is more for the casual play. One of is more for the league and ranked play.
Yeah.
So that visually they have already a difference. But we want to bring this a step further, and once we get to the club level, really give clubs the opportunity to customize it and be out there. On an individual level, the arenas are built that there are some things that you can customize and that we can give some elements of it. There's also one thing that we're talking to some other Web3 projects right now, which is not something that we've made super public. It's a project that we call Home Courts, which is essentially like giving any Web3 community out there the opportunity to have a branded court in the RKL, because we feel that you don't have to be like a part of the RKL and love basketball. Like you can have a cool cat, you can have a bored ape, you can have like whatever PFP you or community you relate to, but you can still love basketball. So why not give everyone or any community the opportunity to have an outlet to showcase their community in game? And this is something where we are talking to several Web3 communities to give them an opportunity to design their own court, and stand out and have it branded in game. And that's something which we've put on our roadmap as well. I think the presentation and the concept is visible on how we envision it. But the home court should be something where you feel at home, and that's going to be one of the challenges. It's not a focus right now from a game development perspective, because we're really focusing on this core loop and the fun gameplay aspect of it. But as we progress and as we get along, it should really feel like something unique. And
what about other partnerships? So, Marcus, I believe you're with Sandbox. Do I have that right? Forgive me for not knowing.
I used to be
Okay.
with Sandbox. Yes.
Is there a partnership with RKL and Sandbox? And how does that play out?
There are actually with some. Yeah, there's multiple levels actually. We co-own land in the Sandbox together with JDS Sports, who's an investor in RKL and also the parent company of Slam Magazine
Okay.
and some other ventures. So it's very much around basketball. And this is something where we will have a presence in the Sandbox that is going to be very much around building a community hub and getting together and having an experience there. And also today, if you own a Kong or if you have a any Kong in your wallet and you connect with that wallet to the Sandbox, you can select this Kong as a voxelized version and play in the Sandbox, which is very much around like the interoperability, portability aspect of it that we're very much like supporting and are for, because it goes back to why not supporting other communities and just having something that the blockchain can enhance and is just natively built for. So from the Sandbox side, there is this. We're having some discussions with them about a mini game campaign that we're going to launch in the next few weeks. So we're going to talk more about this. But in terms of other partnerships and brands, like we're very open, and there's a lot of discussion like online about like Web3 communities. They should work together and they should collaborate. But then when we reach out to them, or like it doesn't seem as easy as everyone makes it sound like.
Yeah.
So we are very much, hey, let's just do something. Like we want to, we give you a court, like we give you players, like let's do something cool. Let's create like wearables, whatever. But there is, end of the day, like a bit more resistance than people make it seem to the outside. Yeah. So that's also a challenge. But we have a lot of strong partners. We have very good connections. Like Nick is in the space since 2014, and myself as well now for over 2 years. So we have very good connections to, I would say, all of the larger brands that are in the space.
Sure.
That we all.
And Nick, I know your other company is ReNFT. How does that play into RKL, and what's the vision for ReNFT?
Yeah, so through ReNFT's peer-to-peer NFT renting and lending infrastructure. So we're working with most major Web3 games to be their infrastructure for renting. It looks different in different games, and it can touch economy, just be through accessibility, whatever the case. But in RKL specifically, like it's going to power essentially all of the rental tech. So, we have plenty of holders that have a lot of Kongs. There'll be plenty of players that want to play in competitive, and want to tap into those Kongs. So, lending that, how does that look? Completely automated, entirely trustless, all the way up to the club level. So like you could just be an investor who bought a club, just like in the real world, you have money man behind the NBA team, then you have a coach, a manager, right? Sure. So being able to actually delegate that out, automate any kind of payouts based on splits you have, these sorts of things is what it will enable in RKL. And like from an accessibility standpoint, like rentals are really important in gaming because, you're baking in all this scarcity and exclusivity around assets with utility. The only way to open that up to more people when you have large whales, just like traditional gaming, your large whales support, the majority of your game economy. Right. That might not be using them, right? And you need those to go to other people. So really just automating it all entirely trustless.
Yeah. Have you deployed in other games or other, like how has ReNFT, how is it being used now?
Yeah, so there's few games live, right? So we're launching with quite a few on Polygon, but our flagship game, Castle Crush, big Web2 game with about 1.5 million active players, has been really active. We just passed 150,000 rentals on there. And what's exciting from RKL's standpoint too is the data we're seeing there, right? So we saw 46% of users started their journey through renting, and of those, 37% actually converted to in-app purchases. So when you look at accessibility and then also conversion, it's huge compared to traditional metrics, which varies on a lot of factors, obviously, but nonetheless, it's clear that this is needed for user acquisition in a meaningful way, not in just like your basic free mode, but in those deeper engaging, gameplay.
Yeah. You mentioned data. How do you expect to utilize data within the RKL ecosystem? Like what sort of plans do you have for data collection?
I think data is one of the biggest things people sleep on that blockchains enable. Sure. When you look at targeting users. There's a lot of great platforms that are starting to build tools around this. We're talking to some on how, like, what are they doing, right? What are they interacting with? You're building this on-chain profile and identity. And some people leave it out there for everyone to see. Others hide it, mask it. There's always going to be that. But nonetheless, like, for instance, if you take somebody who's played Axie, has a Top Shot NFT, maybe they've played around with Bored Apes or owned one previously, like, they're probably a pretty good fit for what we're doing. They're into basketball. They're a gamer, you know, maybe, or, you know, they're a collector. So I think that's the future of like Web3, you know, user targeting. And there's going to be a massive industry around that. It's almost like detailed targeted advertising to some degree.
And particularly with traditional brands too. I mean, I have to imagine that they're going to be super interested in the data that you guys collect, and whether they're buying it or just sharing it or whatever else. I mean, it'll drive advertising and other partnerships going forward.
It also allows us to drive loyalty and engagement, right? We can see the users.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so we can see the users on chain that, like yourself, have minted Kongs and held since day one and support the vision. We can see users who have flipped 100 times and don't really care about the actual game and what's happening. Sure. So we want to reward those loyal community members who they've taken part in our ecosystem. They've named their Kong through our naming system, or they've, you know, signed to a club and we can see it on chain. So like culminating those together, you really get this idea of different player archetypes, right? Like I view speculators and investors as a new player archetype that's entering gaming. And you have to like be weary of that and understand how that can affect things. So it's like, we don't necessarily want to reward the person who has just exited the ecosystem. We want to reward the person that's been there grinding, doing things, participating and helping us grow, right?
Every time I talk to you, Nick, I walk away with the same question, just for myself. Like, how do you guys stay focused? There's so many opportunities. There's so many things you can be working on, need to be working on, and like other things out there, still like bright, shiny things that you can still be working on and building on. Like, how do you stay focused on just building this game?
Endless
and
nights.
Each of you as an individual question, I really need to know.
Endless nights and weekends. But no, realistically, like one of the things staying focused is hard, first of all, to preface that. But one of the things we've always known is that the game, while we have very cool things happening around the ecosystem, the game is the heart and soul. And that is what not only will fund, but also drive value to everything else, right? Like even within clubs, like Gatorade has no way or reason to sign with a club if there's not users playing the game, right? Like that's the reality of business.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, you know, we've always known that that's got to be the focus, and you know, while still nurturing these things on the side. And it's not easy, and you know, we're not perfect either, and that's why we're continuously making adjustments based on community feedback to, you know, what's lacking from your perspective. How can we also like equip you better? How can we enable you more? Just something like over the last bit we've been lacking, and we're starting to turn around as well.
Marcus, you want to add anything to that?
From my side, it's very much around like having the long-term vision and seeing the goal that you're working towards. Like the NFT and crypto Twitter space is very much around like short-term attention spans that change every week. And you see a lot of individuals that are just like chasing whatever is currently hype. Like, is it Bitcoin ordinals? Is it like Pepe? Is it whatever it's going to be next week? But it's going to be something completely different that we don't talk about this week. And for us, it's like we keep an eye on it and we're following it closely, and we see what the conversation is around, because it's important to know which direction the market is evolving and what is the change that is like driving communities and driving traffic and attention. But at the same time, we know what we're doing, we know how to get there and how we want to get there. So it's really like very much around like keeping our focus like drilled down on building a great product, engaging with the community, getting the feedback and iterating. So there's a lot of shiny stuff out there, and there's a lot of things that internally we tell ourselves as well, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we would be doing this? And yes, it would be very cool, but we don't, like we are a startup and we have limited capacity in that regard. But I also think within the team, we are a group of people that each are very skilled in their respective field, and it's something that is very rare, and that is like one of our strengths really, is that you have people that have a lot of gaming background, a lot of blockchain background, that are very good blockchain devs, very good front end devs, very good UI, and each of them is a key member of like this RKL team, and that we can rely on. And I think that's important, that's really driving us and also helping us to stay focused, because myself, like I can look at something from a marketing perspective and say like, hey, it would be cool if we did this. But then we have our blockchain dev who tells me, no, actually, yeah, it would be cool, but actually it would push like all our other features like 3 months out. So then I'm like, okay, actually, yeah, you're right. It would be cool, but let's not do it. So it's it's relying on each other as a team, and really
sound like you sound like a basketball
together.
team with excellent chemistry, championship chemistry.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's important. I mean, you know, when people know their roles and responsibilities, and you all have your eyes on the same prize, things keep moving forward. And I think I get the feeling, and I've had this feeling all along, that that's what's going on with RKL. So you have my confidence, and I appreciate that. And also I'll say this, that, you know, the market has changed dramatically. The NFT market, whatever that means now, has changed significantly, but still on crypto Twitter, NFT Twitter, whatever, on a regular basis, almost daily, people come on and they say, I have some money to spend. What's a cool project that has a great community, that hasn't blown up like crazy yet, but still has a big opportunity and a huge future in front of them? And inevitably someone responds about Kongs, about RKL. And, you know, it's for me, that's like validation in some way, just knowing that there are people out there who are still really, on board with this. And, you know, the expectation is that there's going to be a game that's going to change everything. So
I love it.
Yeah, man. I give you guys.
Sometimes I feel like people don't want to share the opportunity.
Well,
they want more for themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's true. I mean, we can let the price go down a little bit so I can grab a few more. So typically at the end of each episode, I ask people what their dream project would be, or what they'd want to be working on if they weren't working on this. But I don't think I want to ask you guys that question, because I know how focused you are. The question I do want to ask is, where do you see this in 10 years? Like, what's your 10-year vision from now?
10-year vision is that we have the RKL game that is being live, that is being enjoyed by millions of players online. And in parallel, there's going to be a sports ecosystem behind it. Like, it's going to be basketball, and you're going to have something that is very exciting for basketball, but you have, like, this goes back to the lore topic as well. And everything that we're building is built with this in mind. Like, it's Athlos is a sports city where teams compete. And in a perfect world, we want to have an ecosystem where you have your com, you're going to play basketball, but then there's something going on, like on NFL, on hockey, on golf, whatever. And it's all around like competition, like healthy competition and sports, and engaging on various levels. And for us, like this would be the, like, oh, for me personally, like this, I don't know what Nick is going to answer to this question, but for me, like, this would be the dream, that you really have those communities that coexist next to each other, because they are very passionate about their sport of choice or their favorite sport. And it's all under this one umbrella that is living together, and it's just around like having a good time and enjoying.
That's awesome.
Like, the moment.
Do you envision an AR or VR component to that?
A VR component, like VR, I briefly mentioned my opinion at the beginning of this interview. Like, we will see. I think actually where it's at is XR, like it's AR, XR, whatever is going to happen there. Like, it's like at some point we're gonna all wear our glasses, and we're gonna see like augmented reality, like tailored advertising to whatever we've been shopping like before, and the person next to us sees something completely different. You can think of it of whatever you like, but like when you then think about the, like, from an entertainment level, the possibilities that you have is that you really have gaming anywhere. So why not like being in a boring meeting and next to it on your desk you can see like an IR
taking
version
down
of
the
RKL.
economy with
Why not? Like if we can do it, we're gonna do it.
RumbleKong basketball games.
Exactly.
What about you, Nick?
Yeah, it's funny.
That's great. Thanks, Marcus.
Really quick on that, I always use the example of like people always say like, oh, like an AR XR contact lens is the future, and I would say, yeah, it sounds incredible until a massive ad pops up in your eyeball. But nonetheless, like my vision is very similar, right? Like multi-sport ecosystem. 10 years is a long time, right? So multiple titles, also an IP that's just like very known within sports culture, be it fashion through the merchandising to like real world teams. Maybe we'll have a stadium of our own in real life. Who knows? But the end goal is really like bleeding into that culture throughout, with gaming at the heart. Like, you know, when you look at what like, you know, has been done with like a title like League of Legends, like it's literally a lifestyle for people. There's Netflix IP, like the IP is everywhere, right? And again, it all starts with gaming, but like the routes you could take are endless. So I see us going down all those routes with community as well. Like we see in our community, right? We have like Willow building a physical toy line. We have all these different talents building their own respective things, from like software platforms down the ladder, and really feeding into that, continuing to grow that, because that, you know, they're the ones that actually help us get to that.
Yeah, I love it. And as you mentioned earlier, I mean, you guys definitely picked the right sport. Basketball is, first of all, it's global. Secondly, it's just so multifaceted. There's so much happening around basketball: culture, music, fashion. I mean, you name it. And now you're creating just another version of that. And you can branch off in so many directions. So stay focused, right? Stay focused and do cool shit. Anything else you guys want to add? And where can people find RumbleKong League?
Nothing from my side, Marcus. Maybe if you have anything, but yeah, I encourage everyone to check out our Discord, get involved in the community, follow us on Twitter at RumbleKongs. Our website's rumbleKongLeague.com. Check us out on OpenSea. I mean, there's plenty of ways to get involved. One of the things I love about our community is there's no questions that are too dumb. There's so many things happening in our ecosystem, and the vision is very broad in the sense that there's a lot of questions. What are boosts? How does that affect gameplay?
I proved that today. I mean, I asked plenty of dumb questions.
Good. Right. No, and it's perfect though. Like these are the things we want to know, is like what's confusing, where can we provide more clarity, right? So get involved. There's so many people that'll come in, and some people have built, you know, analytical tools. So hop in and
yeah. And to your credit, I mean, you guys have definitely kept it simple. I mean, you know, like we said, there's so many directions you can go in. It has to be approachable. And then if you dig deeper, there's more complexity. Yeah.
Definitely. There has to be a place for everyone. There has to be, I like basketball, let's play. And there has to be, I want to run a full algorithmic model on my team.
Nice. Yeah.
Right?
People are doing it. Marcus, anything else?
I have nothing to add what Nick mentioned. Like, check us out, join the Discord, like head over to Twitter, and like learn more. And if there's any questions, just ask them. And just like thanks for having us here. Like it's always great, and for us, like, it means extra. Like it's like especially special for us because like you're part of the community, and like you're there since like day one, and it's for us as well. Like it's an honor, and it's something that we don't take for granted. So thank you as well for your support and like for setting this up and giving us an outlet to talk about our dreams.
Before I even started this podcast, I knew that I wanted you guys to be guests, you know, months ago before we even launched this. So it's been a pleasure for me too, and hopefully people within the RumbleKong community and new people will learn more about what's going on here, because it really is a special place. So thank you guys for joining. Thank you everybody for listening.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And come back, you know, as soon as new things are happening, I expect to have you guys back. So yeah, man. Thank you all for joining early. Appreciate that. Check us out on Twitter, podcast_early. We're the Web3 business podcast for Bankless Consulting. And Bankless Consulting is banklessconsulting.com. Banklessconsulting.substack.com is our newsletter. Check us out on Twitter at banklessconsult, and share this with your friends. Subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Spotify, and we'll see you next time. Thank you guys.